Hey, how's it going, everybody? Charlie Wilson here, aka Sinister Charlie. Welcome back. Hello. It's been a while since we've done the fatty Electrician. He's got the tank top. I got the tank top. I mean, we're pretty much the same person, except the beard and more tattoos and looking like a man. But anyway, yeah, most gangster dad of World War II, Pappy Gunn. So I know nothing about this story. I'm not big on dads. I didn't have much of one, so we're gonna watch this. Yeah. So usually I don't get the time to be able to sit down and watch one of these, plus my back, and then taking care of the family. So, Anyway, sorry. If you don't know, if you're new, I was in the Navy. I was in the Seabees. I was never on a ship. It's a pretty cool thing to get into if you don't want to be on a ship, but still want the travel and all the amenities of being in the Navy. Just a heads up. All right, let's go.
Whether they're willing to admit it or not,
let me go over
every
here.
single dad has thought about in his head the things that he would do to save his kids, and he also likes to think that somehow, if the situation required it, he would rise to the occasion and become a superhero to do so. Well, This is a story about a man that actually did that.
Quack.
Today we're talking about Paul Irvin Gunn, a.k.a. Pappy. General Kenny, the man in charge of the entire
that guy looks
United
cool
States
as fuck.
Army Air Force after his time in service, after having hundreds of thousands of men
You know who that
serve
looks like?
underneath him.
That looks like the guy from MASH, the general. I think he was a general or a major. Major, right? I can't remember.
Wrote a
It's been a
book
while.
about two of them. One of them is about Dick Bong, America's ace.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
The greatest fighter pilot in American
Awesome
history.
name.
And the other is about Pappy, a 42-year-old retired Navy carrier pilot that was working as a civilian pilot
All right,
in
Navy.
Manila in
Hoorah.
the Philippines when the Japanese attacked. When things started going south in the Philippines, General MacArthur's staff told Pappy that they needed him to fly a bunch of very important VIPs from the Philippines all the way to Australia to safety. They told him that Manila was going to be defended and he would have time to take the VIPs to Australia, come back, pick up his family, and evacuate them as well.
Oh, the lie detector determined that was a lie.
They lied. By the time Pappy
Yeah.
had reached Australia, he was informed that MacArthur had declared Manila an open city and it had fallen into the hands of the Japanese with zero resistance. His family was then taken and placed in an internment camp at Santo Tomas.
That
Pappy
sucks.
then goes on a one-man rampage to get his family back, launching multiple rescue attempts, crash landing his plane.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason that a lot of people don't like MacArthur, or at least that's the reason he doesn't. Here he's kind of a dick.
Multiple times before he comes to the conclusion he's not going to be able to do this by himself. The only way he's going to be able to get his family back is by helping America win the war. In order to do that, he steals an entire fleet of B-25 medium bombers from the Danish government, takes them back to his base, heavily modifies them by sticking
From the Danes.
caliber machine guns in the nose, a feat that engineers said was impossible, creating the first predecessor for the A-10 Warthog. He then proceeds to train a bunch of other pilots how to fly these things and takes them out on missions where they wreak havoc on enemy ground troops in the Pacific. And after they've killed so many enemy soldiers that they need reinforcements, and they're sending in a massive reinforcement convoy with supplies and an entire infantry division, Pappy heavily modifies the B-25s again to perfect a tactic known as skip bombing and utilizes them to destroy
Nice.
the entire reinforcement convoy before it ever reaches the coast, which directly leads to the liberation of the Philippines. General Kenny said that Pappy Gunn was more important to the war effort than any Japanese general ever could have been. So if this is true, how have you never heard of this guy? It's
don't
because
know.
General Kenny also made it illegal for journalists to write stories about him at the time because they didn't want the Japanese finding out who this guy was and how much trouble he was causing, because then they would take it out on his family in the internment camp.
Oh, yeah,
But since that's
yeah.
no longer a concern, we can talk about it right after word from our sponsor.
Sponsors. Who are you?
You're not my wife.
Yeah, no, wife and kids unionized, so
Oh, well, that makes sense. Everyone deserves a union.
Great.
Okay.
You know, I'm going to have to redo the camera angle because you have to hunch down because you're so much taller than my wife if you're replacing her, right? All right, you guys know the deal. Delete me. Online.
All right, I do
subscription
know
model.
it.
You give them
We
money
might
every
skip
month. They
through
turn
this,
around and make
I
sure
guess.
that data brokers on the internet
I
aren't
usually
selling
sit through
your personal
ads if they're
information. What
new.
does this actually do in
But,
practice? It gets
yeah,
rid-
anyway.
delete it again.
Sorry.
In my opinion, it's
Go to
definitely
his
worth
thing.
it. I've been using them since before they
Use
were paying me
code.
to talk about them, and I'm going to keep using them after they quit paying me to talk about them. If you want to give it a try, I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video.
Gun.
Our story begins October 18th, 1899 in Quitman, Arkansas, when a young Paul Irvin Gunn is born.
Arkansas.
He's one of 9 kids. He has 5 older sisters, and he is the oldest son. At the age of 7, his dad passes away. His 5 older sisters have already married and moved out of the house, and he is at this point the oldest child. He is now the man of the house at 7 years old. From this point on, he becomes a workaholic for the rest of his life. If he's not helping his mom on the farm, he's going out, he's shining shoes in town, and then eventually he gets a job working for a mechanic in town, working on cars, where he becomes a brilliant mechanic at a very young age.
Hi, my name is Giuseppe, and I'm a 9-year-old car enthusiast.
Okay.
So brilliant, by the time he's a teenager, he's actually able to take a bunch of old wrecked cars in the salvage yard behind the mechanic shop and cobble them together to make a car that he can drive for himself.
That's awesome.
Not only does this car drive, it's the fastest car anybody's ever seen.
That's cool.
He loves it. He loves working on cars. He likes going fast. He wants to be a race car driver. And then one day, he sees a plane, which goes even faster than a race car. So he decides he wants to be a pilot. And the best place to do that is in the United States Navy. But he can't. He can't leave his mom. Mom needs him to help make money so that she can keep the house and the family afloat. So he can't leave her high and dry unless he can figure out a way to make a shit ton of money and leave it with mom. Then he could go off and achieve his dream. The only problem with that is the only honest legal way to make money is to work at the mill in town, and that only pays 75 cents a day. That's going to take him years to save up enough money. That's not going to work, so he decides to do it the illegal, dishonest way. He's 16 years old. He can drive his ass off, and he's got the...
Is he gonna transport booze? Is it gonna be like bootlegging? Because that'd be pretty sick, dude.
fastest car.
It is
town,
Arkansas.
So he becomes a bootlegger for
There
the
we go.
mafia running alcohol during Prohibition.
Love this kid.
That's my baby.
He gets paid $30.
I don't
for
necessarily
a
love that man, but that he just showed on
fun.
screen.
He's making $30 in a night when most other grown men are making 75 cents a day. He winds up saving up hundreds and hundreds of dollars for his mom. After he's finally saved up what he thinks is going to be enough money, he's going to go out on one last mission. He's going to go out on one last run. And on that run,
Gets
the
caught.
police set up a trap
There you go.
and they catch him on a bridge. He gets arrested. This is going on during World War I. The draft is in place, at which point he's taken to court and he is given the options, go to the military.
But he wants to
or
be a
go
pilot,
jail.
so-
And he's like, well, this is perfect. I was planning on going to the military anyways. So he goes.
This is your plan.
Oh.
It worked. Every step of the way.
Ships off for basic training. To the
Oh,
Navy,
okay.
Does great.
I figured he wants to be a pilot, right? And I don't know how that works if you're forced to, like with jail and stuff. I don't know. They didn't have that when I joined the Navy. I just got my GED and then joined the Navy. I don't know how the jail thing works.
Everything's going awesome. And then it dawns on him, you have to be an officer to be a pilot. He's in.
Oh, yeah.
There's no
That's
way
what
they're
I was
gonna let
saying,
some
okay.
guy who's here to avoid jail go off and become an officer. So his dreams of becoming a pilot aren't looking that great. At which point he decides he's going to be the next closest thing he can be, just to be near the planes and to do something he enjoys. He's going to become an aviation mechanic.
Oh, there
That's
you
what
go.
he does for the next 6 years. He's an aviation mechanic and he is ungodly good at it. Like, the dude is just naturally talented, mechanically inclined. He can look at something and just know how it works. And while he's doing that, he's sending a bunch of his money back home, and the only money he's spending on himself is he's going out on his own personal time and paying civilian pilots to train him how to fly planes.
Oh.
During this period of time, he also meets his wife, Clara, and they end up getting married. And at some point along the line, Pappy is like, you know what? You look more like a Polly to me. He literally
Okay.
names his wife after himself, which
Okay.
is the second pilot I've covered on this channel that just randomly renamed their wives.
That's weird.
I don't know what's
I
going
don't
on with
get
that,
it
but
either.
yeah, it happens. So now he's married to Polly.
Hello, horse. I shall call you Burger.
Now, right around the time his first
Okay.
6-year enlistment's about to be up, there's this big push through Congress to be able to have enlisted guys go and be pilots. And for this, Pappy's a shoo-in. He already knows how to fly planes because he's been paying civilians to teach him, and he knows the inner workings of every single plane that the U.S. Navy has. Because of this, they tell him that if he re-ups for another 6 years, they'll give him one of these pilot slots, and he can go off to flight school, so he takes it.
They tried to get me with that too when I was in the Navy. They were like, you can go blue to green, just enlist, or I don't know what they call it, with the officers and stuff. Not worth it.
Graduates
To
flight
me.
school, no problem.
To me.
Goes off, gets attached to VF-1, one of America's first ever fighter squadrons known as the Top Hatters. This is one of, if not the best fighter squadrons America has at the time, and they are the ones that go through and basically pioneer combat aviation between World War I and World War II. These are the guys that perfected carrier landings, aircraft carrier warfare. Pappy was there for all of it. Towards the end of his time at VF-1, he's also selected as one of the pilots that goes out and and searches for Amelia Earhart after she was lost.
Really?
He then spends the last couple of years of his 20-year career as a flight instructor before retiring. Oh, also, during his 20-year military career, in the back half of it, he started having trouble having a bunch of cavities, and he just kept going back to the dentist to get his mouth drilled in and get these cavities filled, and eventually it was taking up too much of his time. It was taking up too much time.
Did he knock out all his teeth?
And he didn't like it, so he just goes to the Navy dentist and is like, hey, just pull all my teeth out and give me dentures. And
Jesus.
the Navy dentist is like, absolutely not. And Pappy Gunn is like, fine. So he goes into the civilian market and has a civilian dentist pull out all of his teeth and give him dentures. Like I said, the dude is a workaholic.
Crazy.
So Pappy retires from the Navy. Pappy and Polly move the family out to the Philippines in Manila. They've got 2 sons and 2 daughters, and they're living out in the Philippines. And Pappy is a founding member of Philippine Airlines. They've got a couple of Dash 18 planes, and they're flying people all over the area. This goes on for a couple of years. Pappy's retired. He's still flying planes. He's got his dream job. He's got his wife. He's got his kids. Because of the exchange rate between American currency and Filipino currency, they're basically very wealthy.
Oh, yeah.
They have servants working in the house.
Yeah, you could probably, with a normal American median paycheck, go live in the Philippines and be all right, I guess. Yeah.
Things are great. He's retired. He's done. He's achieved everything. He's successful. And then World War II starts. America's not involved yet, but Pappy can see the writing on the wall. There's only so many airstrips in the Philippines, and Pappy's airline, Philippine Airlines, shares the same airstrips as the United States Air Force, and he can see that the United States Air Force is building up more planes and more troops and bringing in more supplies. They're getting ready for something, and Pappy knows that because he spent 20 years in the Navy. So he goes to his wife, Polly, and is like, hey, you and the kids need to go back to America. You need to go to Florida. If something happens here, we're not going to be able to hold up. Like, yeah, they're building up troops, but it's not going to be enough if the Japanese decide to attack. You need to get sent back home. Polly, his wife, absolutely refuses. She's not leaving. Okay, fine. Now, by this point, Pappy's been in the Philippines for years. Everybody in the aviation community knows who he is. He's the best pilot around. If you need a pilot to get you somewhere nobody else feels comfortable getting you, or you need to fly through a storm, Pappy's the guy you go to. And on December 7th, 1941 is one of these cases. Pappy's plane gets chartered to fly through a storm. Pappy does it, flies through the storm, no problem, lands. When he lands, he blows out a tire on his landing equipment. He's now stranded on this smaller island until he can get this tire fixed. Not a big deal. Until he hears all the radio transmissions that the Japanese have just attacked Pearl Harbor. Oh shit, he needs to get home right now. So he goes, he gets on a boat, and then he gets on a train, and then he gets on a bus. He travels for an entire day and eventually makes it home, hasn't slept in 2 days, walks through the door, absolutely furious. The family's freaking out. His kids are like between the ages of 8 and 14. He's pissed off. He's telling Polly, damn it, you should have listened to me. Now it's going to be too late.
I don't know what it is. My OBS keeps messing up. Sorry, not your problem.
To get you out.
My
I
problem.
need you to leave. Now the Japanese are coming here to attack us next, and I'm not going to be able to get you out. But he's going to have to, so he leaves. He goes back to the airfield, Nichols Field, and he goes to where his hangar is with all of his airplanes, and he separates his planes out, sticking them in the spots that are least likely to get attacked by the Japanese, not if, but when they launch an air raid, because it's probably going to be tonight. He needs to save his planes so that he's going to be able to save his family. And at this point, Pappy's like the only one that's just ratcheted up to 11. Like, everybody else is like freaked out and sad. Pappy is like the one dude around that knows that the Japanese are on their way. He served 20 years in the Navy. He knows the only reason the Japanese would attack Pearl Harbor and cripple the American Navy was so that they could attack everywhere else in the Pacific theater with impunity, and that's exactly what they're gonna do. On top of that, he also knows the atrocities that the Japanese military committed at Nanking and in China, killing and murdering innocent civilians and torturing them for fun. So he's freaking out, and he's trying to figure out how to get his family off of this island. And while this is going on, he finds out that, oh, I was correct, because the Japanese just attacked Clark Airfield, where all of the American heavy bombers are for the entire area, which was the biggest thing defending the Philippines. And the Japanese destroyed almost all of the American bomber fleet because MacArthur, even though he had time and he had warning from Pearl Harbor that the Japanese
he hates
were coming,
MacArthur,
decided, now we'll just leave the bombers on the ground so the enemy can go by and drop bombs on top of fucking not moving targets on the runway. Perfect.
That shit is crazy.
I really don't like that guy.
So he finishes up hiding his Beach 18s the best that he can, goes back home, has the family cover all the windows with tarps and blankets to restrict any light movement. He's freaking out because his house is only a mile away from Nichols Airfield, and from the sky, you can't tell that it's not part of the military base. It's a good chance his house is going to get hit if the Japanese attack. He has the entire family sleep in the living room. He has a game plan. He's like, okay, one of us has to be up at all times. If we hear enemy planes, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out into the front yard. Our yard has this like brick wall perimeter around it. You're going to lay belly down next to that brick wall outside of the house with your mouth open the entire time. Darn, like, why are we keeping our mouth open?
So you don't blow your eardrums out, huh? Probably.
So the shockwave from a
There you
bomb
go.
doesn't blow your eardrums out. At this point, the family's shitting their pants. They realize
There's some stuff you just remember. I don't know. You don't necessarily have to be in the military to know that, but it's just funny how that's just seems like, I don't know, human nature, I guess. I don't know.
how serious things are getting, and everybody's panicked. Pappy, who already hasn't slept in 2 days, takes the first shift. He's up till like 2 in the morning. He's dog-ass tired, hasn't slept in 48 hours. He's about to go wake up Paulie to take the next shift, and right at about 2:30, he hears planes off in the distance, and he's listening, and he's listening, and he's so experienced as a mechanic and an aviator, he doesn't recognize that plane, and if Pappy doesn't recognize it, it's not a plane
good.
that's from the Philippines, and it's not a plane that's in the U.S. arsenal. It's the Japanese. Pappy wakes the entire family up. They rush outside, and they all get to lay belly down next to the brick wall in their
With
front
mouths
yard
open.
with their mouths open and watch Nichols Field a
Silly.
mile away get bombed to shit. Next morning, Pappy goes and finds an apartment deep into a residential area on Manila, somewhere that's going to be far away from any military objectives, so hopefully they're not going to get hit there. Moves the family into this apartment, and then immediately goes to check and see if his plane survived. Luckily, 2 of his Beach 18s made it through the bombing. But they're going to come back tonight, and they're going to hit it again. He's got to move these planes. He's thinking about where the fuck do I hide these planes and still be able to use them to take off, and he remembers that there's an abandoned airstrip from years ago right next to an old Chinese cemetery in Manila. He takes the planes, flies them to this abandoned cemetery, and then hides them in there. But now he's still got to be able to hide the airstrip because, yeah, the Japanese probably don't know about it right now just from looking at maps and stuff because it's so old and it's been abandoned. But if they're flying over doing reconnaissance, they're going to spot it eventually, and then they're going to bomb the airstrip, and then he can't take off, and then he can't use his planes, so he has to hide an entire airstrip from aerial view. So he goes, he gets a bunch of his employees from Philippine Airlines, and they work all day constructing sheds and makeshift shacks and putting them on wheels so that they can wheel them onto the airstrip and make it look like a homeless encampment or a slum and not an airstrip from an aerial view. He then heads over to the Navy office in Manila and is like, hey, are you guys calling me back into service? What do you need? What are we doing? Everybody at the Navy, nobody has any fucking
And they're like, you're too old.
clue what's going
Should have joined Old Navy. It's just a little Navy joke.
on. Everything's chaos. They basically like shrug their shoulders and like, I don't know, bro. We haven't heard anything. So then he goes to check in with the Army Air Force. And
Sorry, I have to tell the story. We had a guy in boot camp, and he was 39 years old. I was 20 at the time. I just turned 20. So we used to call him Old Navy. It's pretty funny.
the Army Air Force is like, hey, we're confiscating every civilian plane. Everything we need, we're confiscating all of it. It's ours now. So we're going to take your Beach 18s. You can give them to us, and then you can go fend for yourself with your family in Manila. Or, since you're a pilot, we'll commission you right now, and you can be a United States Army Air Force pilot. And Pappy's like, fucking, I guess I'm gonna be a pilot, and he gets commissioned as a captain on the spot at the age of 42, just so we're all clear, which is ancient in military standards.
Things aren't so bad. Food's a lot better. We used to boil everything. No polio's good. Internet, so helpful.
From here, Pappy's working like 18 hours a day as a pilot, doing whatever they need him to do. He's flying VIPs from island to island. He's moving supplies around in his Beach 18, whatever they need. He's working like 16 hours a day, and then when he goes home, he's working trying to figure out how to get his family off this island and how to keep them safe. One of the things he needs is an air raid shelter for his family. He can't dig one because the water table in the Philippines is so high it'll just flood. So he steals this giant boiler, cuts it open, and then builds an air raid shelter inside of this massive massive boiler that'll be able to deflect shrapnel, ideally bullets and everything else, and has his army guys serving under him deliver it to the front yard of their apartment, and it's just sitting in front of their apartment. Then December 13th, 1941, Pappy's on a solo mission doing a supply run, and while he's out there, basically enemy airspace at this point, 2 Zeros get on his tail. He's in a Beech 18. It's a civilian aircraft with no armor, no guns, no defensive measures. He doesn't have a parachute, and to make things worse, he's got extra fuel tanks in the back. They're not.
Oh, that's not good.
He's basically flying a giant incendiary bomb.
That's not good.
And he has no way of defending himself.
It's not the plane, it's the pilot.
The Zeros start shooting at him. Pappy
Sometimes
does
it's the
only thing he can
plane.
do. He dives down, gets like feet off the ground. He's bobbing and weaving in between trees, hills, flying nape of the earth. Anything he can do to try to lose these Zeros, he's doing it. They chase him for like 10 minutes. They wind up shooting out his right engine and hitting his fuselage. He winds up losing the Zeros, but now he smells fuel. They punctured his fuel tanks. They're not self-sealing. He still has a huge problem on his hand. He's not going to be able to make it far on one engine, so he goes to the nearest Allied airfield. He approaches. He radios in. No response. Radios in. No response. He has to land this plane like right now. As he makes his approach, Allied forces start lighting him up with anti-aircraft fire,
no.
hitting his plane even more. Stop blowing holes in my ship! Pappy peels off, somehow manages
I sure hope he said ship. Yeah.
to limp the plane all the way back to Nichols Field, a mile from his house. And as he approaches Nichols Field at night, he radios in. Still, no response from anybody. The radios have been knocked out in the previous air raids. And he's approaching, goes to hit the landing gear. The hydraulic system for his landing gear's out too. He now has to belly land a plane with leaking fuel tanks in the middle of the night. Somehow he does it. He crash lands this plane, ends up ripping the wing off. The plane's absolutely totaled, but he survives. He's got one plane left, and then he just kind of like goes home. He's later told by the mechanics that his plane had 130 bullet holes in it.
Damn.
But, you know, whatever. He smokes a cigarette and heads home.
Yeah, what are you
Gets
going to
home
do?
late at night. Paulie asks him how his day was, and he's just like,
Got shot
it
at.
was good. He didn't want to worry her. Shortly after this, the Japanese
That's
start
the best way
landing
to-
ground troops. Absolutely.
I have a hard time telling people what I saw over there, over like in Iraq and stuff. Even like things like I saw in Greece or Japan itself. Yeah, it's a little rough trying to tell people the kind of crazy shit you've done.
Everywhere. And Pappy's like,
a
I
little
need
odd.
to figure out where to get my family. I have to get them out of Manila, like right now. And for the same reason, this is also the same time that the Army chain of command is like, we need to get out all of our super important VIPs, like right now. Pappy, being one of the best pilots they have, gets selected to fly out General Barradin, the head of the U.S. Army Air Force at this point in time. And he basically tells them, no, sorry, I got to get my family out. I've got more important shit to do. Figure out how to get your own VIP to Australia. At which point he is ordered to take General Barradin, and he is assured by the chain of command that Manila is going to be defended. He will have time to make it back and then save his family.
Oh,
It's
right.
working.
No,
So he
no.
does it. He follows orders. He flies General Barradin and his staff to
Oh,
Australia,
no.
and by the time he lands in Australia, he finds out that MacArthur has declared Manila an open city, and it has been turned over to the Japanese with zero resistance. His family, for all intents and purposes.
Is that him? Sorry, I live next to an Air Force base. I know, really fancy stuff. Anyway, sorry.
As far as he knows, is either dead or put in a Japanese internment camp.
Son of a bitch.
Pappy flies off the fucking handle. He is pissed. He followed orders. He doesn't give a fuck about orders. He doesn't care about rank. He doesn't care about the military. He doesn't care about anything other than saving his family. And he's gonna do whatever it takes to get it done. And now they're trying to tell him he's not allowed to go back to the Philippines because it's too dangerous. Guess who doesn't give a single fuck about
that one
orders
guy?
ever again? Pappy Gunn.
Okay.
So he goes out and somehow or another he acquires $3,500 and then finds somebody that's already headed back to Manila on orders, bribes them with $3,500, gives them his wedding ring and a note that says, get this to Polly at this address. And that letter tells her, have the kids ready, pack one bag apiece, be on this road at this time. I'll be there to pick you up. 10 days later, Pappy steals a military plane, flies it into the Philippines with no escort in enemy territory, completely unguarded
Jesus.
at night, lands it on the civilian road that he told his wife to meet him at, and he sits there and he waits, and he waits,
Uh-oh.
and he waits.
I don't like where this is going.
So he does the only thing he can do. He heads back to Australia.
Do it.
Pappy gets back to Australia, starts trying to figure out what to do, starts going to different military units. Pappy, he just got commissioned as a captain. He wasn't attached to a unit formally. They were just like, here's your commission, go do whatever the fuck we tell you, and that's what was going on. He doesn't really know who his chain of command even is, so he just starts wandering around military bases from unit to unit, trying to figure out how he can help. He starts volunteering for any dangerous mission, recon, supply runs, anything that will get him back or close to Manila so he can ideally also rescue his family. During this time, he never gets the opportunity to rescue his family. Allegedly, according to legend, he crashes 3 to 5 planes, survives every single one of them, and just somehow keeps making his way back to Australia. And every time he makes it back to Australia, nothing's improving. Everybody is just kind of like scrambling around. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. A lot of people just aren't doing anything because nobody knows what to do. And then Pappy eventually finds Colonel Davies of the 27th Bomb Group, who has the same attitude and demeanor as Pappy of, we need to get shit done. And the problem Colonel Davies is having is he can't get any supplies from the U.S. government because the Quartermaster Corps isn't in warfighting mode. They're in like do everything by the book mode. So they're just
well, that's
hoarding all
stupid.
these supplies
Don't
in
do that.
warehouses and refusing to give them out to the combat units, so they can't get anything done because they can't get their planes up and running. So Pappy decides he's going to take matters into his own hands. He goes to Colonel Davies and is like, hey, give me a couple of mechanics that know everything you guys need to get these planes up and running, and we'll go get it. Colonel Davies gives him the 2 mechanics. They hop in 2 trucks. They drive out to a Quartermaster U.S. military warehouse with Tommy guns and rob the warehouse.
Tommy
A couple hours
guns.
later, Pappy and the 2 mechanics come rolling back up to Colonel Davies' base with all the shit they needed to get these planes up and running, and Colonel Davies is like, do I want to know how you got this? And Pappy's like, nope. To which Colonel Davies replies, good,
Fair enough.
get more. And for a while, this becomes Pappy's new job, strategically transferring equipment to an alternate location for Colonel Davies. Whatever he needs, he gets, and whatever he can't get, he figures out how to make. And if he can't make it on the spot, he goes out to machine shops in Australia and convinces them to make it for him. Nobody knows where he got the money to do it. He wasn't going to rob civilians. They're not the ones that lied to him and got his family put in an internment camp, so he doesn't want to screw them over. He somehow manages to pay the Australian manufacturing shops for all the aircraft parts they need. Nobody knows where he got the money, but he amassed $16,000 in receipts, which is approximately like $320,000 today.
Jesus.
It's legal. Absolutely.
Pappy is a man possessed. He's working 24/7 all the time. People are going, they're working first shift, second shift, coming back to work, and Pappy is still there working. And this is where the legend of Pappy Gunn starts to take off, and he gets the nickname Pappy because everybody's like, who the fuck is this old captain that works
You're so old.
24/7, doesn't need to sleep, and is willing to rob people with a gun? And after working around the clock for weeks, they finally got a bunch of the P-40s ready to get into the action, and they're going to ship them off to Bataan to help the Allied forces fight the Japanese. Only problem, for the most part, these are all rookie pilots. Navigating over open ocean is extremely difficult, and they don't know the area, so Pappy's like, fine, I'll do it myself. I will guide the P-40s there in my Beach 18. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to slip off and rescue my family. So they take off. Pappy's in his Beach 18. He's guiding the P-40s. They're going to have to make multiple stops to refuel on different islands along the way, and they make it to their second refueling point, and one of the P-40s blows a tire. So naturally, they're going to leave that P-40 there, wait for it to get repaired, and the rest of the P-40s are going to continue to Bataan. No, I'm just kidding. The commander is like, no, that would be too risky because then there would be one P-40 traveling by itself and he would be an easy target for the Japanese. So instead of having the P-40, the warplane designed for aerial combat, travel by itself, we're going to have Pappy in his Beach 18 civilian plane with no armor, full of fuel tanks that aren't self-sealing, and no guns. We're going to have him fly back by himself, pick up a tire, bring it back, and then he can fix it because he's the mechanic.
That makes sense.
Pappy's like, fine, whatever, flies back, gets the tire, flies back to this island. When he gets back to the island, fixes the tire, and then he's informed that the Japanese have just captured the Dutch East Indies, which was their next refueling point, so now they can't make it to Bataan. At this point, the P-40s get diverted, they get sent out to Java. Pappy takes him to Java, then he heads back to Australia, and at this point, he now realizes the only plane with enough fuel to be able to make it from Australia straight to the Philippines is going to be a massive bomber, and he doesn't have that plane, so he's going to have to acquire one if he wants to save his family. So Pappy gets back to Australia, goes out to the junkyard. The junkyard is just being salvaged to death. There's no supplies, everybody's cannibalizing everything to keep planes in the air, but he finds his B-17 that's just completely destroyed. It's all shot up, it's ruined, it's been dug through for any valuable parts, but they're not Pappy. Pappy finds this B-17. It says Miss EMF painted on the side, which he later found out meant every morning fixing, because before it was decommissioned, they had to work on it every single day to keep this plane in the air.
Okay.
Pappy goes to work around the clock working on Miss EMF, stealing all the parts that he needs, and he gets this B-17 to the point that it can fly. And unlike his civilian Beech-18, this can carry guns and ammunition, which is something Pappy definitely wants. So that's exactly what he gets. We don't really know how for sure, but allegedly the word on the street is by this point in time, Pappy had started carrying 2 Colt 45s on a chest rig on either side of his body.
Awesome.
And he convinced a supply sergeant and some aviation mechanics to load up his plane at gunpoint. He then proceeds to go on multiple combat bombing missions by himself under no orders. Then the next opportunity to get to the Philippines arises. Basically, what's going on at this point is Allied forces on the ground are just getting ravaged by malaria. They need to get malaria medications smuggled into the Philippines.
Dude, malaria is no joke. We when I was in Africa, we were building a school in Comoros, which is an island off the coast of Madagascar. And one of our guys got malaria, but our higher command, it was like a 19-person detachment. And everybody thought he was faking being sick, but it turns out he had malaria. So that was fun. It's fun. Not for him. For everybody else, I guess. Jesus.
To keep their troops up.
No joke
fighting.
is what I'm
so
saying.
They're going to get all this malaria medication, and they need a crazy pilot to fly all the way there, and Pappy volunteers, thinking it's going to be another opportunity to get close to my family. Maybe I'll be able to rescue him. So he loads up his plane with quinine, malaria medication, and flies straight towards Bataan. On the way there, about 12 hours in.
Oh, yeah, that's the malaria medication.
They come in, they shoot him down. Pappy's somehow able to limp this thing to the nearest island, where he has to crash land on a coconut grove. Pappy then links up with friendlies on the island, finds out that his family is still alive, and then figures out a way to make his way back to Australia. A submarine comes and picks him up. When he gets back to Australia, he checks out the flight line, and there is 14 brand new B-25 medium bombers fresh off the factory line sitting there. Pappy is immediately pumped, like, okay, we're getting new planes, we're going to be able to fight this war, we're going to win, I'm going to get my family back. Pappy starts talking with the NCO that's on the flight line, taking care of these planes, and he informs him, oh, actually, these planes aren't for America, even though they're made by America in American factories. These planes actually belong to the Dutch Air Force, which is
well, screw that.
They don't even have enough men to man these planes. Immediately, Pappy's pissed. Like, what the fuck what are you talking about? We've got American pilots sitting around that don't have planes that are ready to go get into combat, and these are just going to sit here empty. And the NCO's just like, yep, pretty much that's about it.
Welcome to the military, dude.
Dumbest thing I've ever heard.
So Pappy immediately goes to Colonel Davies, tells Colonel Davies what's going on. Colonel Davies kicks it up to his chain of command, and the general above Colonel Davies writes an order for the American military to seize those B-25s.
Hell yeah.
Have the Dutch agreed to this?
No.
Does
Who
Pappy
cares?
Care? Also, no. So Pappy and a bunch of his boys roll up to this Dutch airfield, and they're like, hey, we're supposed to take these planes. Here's our written orders. And the Dutch are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody told us anything about this.
Too bad.
No, you're not taking our planes. We need to look into this. We need to run this up our chain of command. Pretty understandable, normal chain of procedure that they're asking here. And Pappy's like, oh, sure, go ahead. Do you mind if we go look at the planes while you guys figure that out? And they're like, yeah, go ahead, go look at them, whatever. They go in the office to check this with the chain of command. Pappy and his guys hop in the planes and just fucking take off.
Hell yeah. Later.
By the time they land back at their airfield, the Dutch have already radioed up to the American chain of command. There's some major from a different chain of command that's there barking orders saying, we need to take the planes back right now. You stole these planes, blah, 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 blah. Colonel Davies comes around the corner and is like, what orders do you have to make us send these planes back? And he's like, I have verbal orders from so-and-so.
Well,
and he's
that's
like, cool,
not written,
I have
so.
written orders right here, and written orders trump verbal orders,
Yep.
so fuck off. The planes are ours.
Yes, he does. He does.
Pappy has just strategically acquired
I still remember that movie. I don't
an
know.
entire fleet of B-25 medium bombers. But there's a
Good
problem.
movie.
They don't have bomb sights, so they're kind of worthless. The Dutch probably took the bomb sights out and then locked them up in the weapons cabinet, which would be standard procedure at this point in time. So, yeah, they're basically just giant transport planes without the ability to accurately bomb, so they're worthless. At which point, Pappy says, I'll be right back. Pappy takes off, goes back to the Dutch airfield with his Colt 45s and robs the supply sergeant and takes the bomb sites and brings them back. Pappy doesn't give a fuck. What are they gonna do? Court-martial him? They already got his family put in an internment camp. He doesn't care. So now Pappy starts learning everything about bombers, right? He was a Navy pilot. He's only done dive bombing. These things can't dive bomb. They're big conventional bombers dropping bombs from, 10,000 feet up in the air. And he very quickly realizes that that's not effective against ships. else at all. He's gonna have to figure out a way to successfully use a B-25 effectively against enemy ships. And he decides you're just gonna have to fly super low and go right above them and drop the bombs to just literally park it right on their foreheads. That's the only way this is gonna work. The problem is you're gonna get absolutely lit up by enemy anti-aircraft fire. So now he has to figure out a way to suppress the enemy anti-aircraft fire. So he goes out and he acquires an A-20 Havoc, a light bomber, and then he also goes out and acquires
a lot of stuff.
caliber machine guns and figures out a way to mount them in the nose. And the A-20 Havoc is going to go in and strafe the entire deck, taking out the anti-aircraft guns, or at the very least suppressing them so they can't shoot at the B-25s, and the B-25s are going to fly right over the top and bomb the fuck out of the ship and sink it. That's the plan. Okay, and just so we're all on the same page, I'm like, oh, he throws some 50 cals in a plane. You don't just throw 6 50 caliber machine guns in the nose of a plane, okay? You're looking at like thousands of pounds of extra weight between the guns and the ammunition in the nose of the plane, throwing off the weight, the center of gravity, the aerodynamics, absolutely everything. Regardless, Pappy works around the clock and figures out how to make it work. And then it dawns on him, well, what if I do the same thing to the B-25s? Then
it sucks you can't have this kind of innovation nowadays in the military because everything, like, you can't touch anything. You can't do anything. I guess if you're in like a wartime situation, you could improvise some stuff. But if you're messing with like military government equipment, you're going to pay for it, I guess.
They can light up
It's
the
kind of ridiculous.
anti-aircraft fire on their way in as well. It's even more suppressing fire.
That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
So Pappy goes to work again. This time it's way harder for whatever reason. The aerodynamics, the center of gravity just aren't working out. He's trying to mount 8 50 caliber machine guns in the nose of a B-25. He is working on it like 20 hours a day, nonstop. Just a man that's absolutely possessed. While he's doing this, he winds up breaking his pinky. He smashes it somehow.
Sure.
Whatever. He breaks his pinky. It's all mangled. It's
As you
hanging
do.
sideways. Goes to the doctor. Gets it splinted. The splint keeps coming off. He keeps bumping it on shit. It fucking hurts.
Is he going to amputate his finger? I'm guessing that's what might happen here.
Finally, he's had enough. It's taken too much of his time off from his project so he can save his family, and it's just a pinky. He doesn't fucking need it.
Yep.
So he goes to his
Knew it.
medic and he's like, hey, I need you to cut this off. And the medic is like, dude, I'm just a medic. I'm not a surgeon.
Yeah,
Let's take you to the hospital. We'll see what they can do. He's not even trying to question this guy. He knows Pappy at this point. He knows he's serious. So he goes to the hospital with Pappy. They go in, they talk to the surgeon. The surgeon's like, oh, we can splint it. We can do a cast. I can do some surgery, blah, 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 blah. And Pappy's like, no, just cut the fucker off.
Yeah, the only reason I said that, there's some football player in the NFL back in the day who had his finger amputated so he could keep playing. I think it was on the 49ers. It's weird. Some people do that shit. It's like, all right, man.
I'm busy. I don't have time for this shit. And the surgeon is like, I can't ethically do that. At which point, Pappy pulls out one of his 45s, points it at his finger, and says, you're going to cut it off and you're going to clean it off the wall. What do you want to do?
Sorry. Very, ugh.
The doctor cut it off.
All right.
And Pappy goes right back to work with 9 fingers.
Strafer.
By this point, he's got a functioning prototype. He's going up on combat missions in a plane that's not tested, managing to keep this thing in the air while it's so heavy in the nose. And the first time he fires it in combat, it almost knocks the plane out of the sky and rips the guns right out of the nose cone, ripping the entire thing off. Luckily, he manages to keep it in the air, brings it back. It's okay, I got the useful data. He reinforces the nose cone. He figures out how to mount the 50 calibers directly to the airframe. He's making this work. Also, around this time, he acquires a pet lizard that he names Sam. Apparently, it's just some big-ass lizard that sits on his shoulder all day
Awesome.
and pisses at people when they walk by while he's working. So everybody's just kind of like
awesome.
The old crazy dude Pappy has just
Pappy
he's
rules.
lost his fucking mind. He continues working on the plane. He continues going up on these test runs. Sam the lizard is flying shotgun on his shoulder the entire time.
Okay. A Rango reference.
Eventually, he thinks he's got it. He thinks he's perfected the design. He has made this plane work somehow, and he wants to go test it. The problem is, there's no combat missions for the day, so he takes off anyways, and he's just flying around looking for something to shoot. He flies over a farm, and he sees a cow. Pappy and Sam, it was probably Sam's idea, but Pappy ends up strafing this cow.
Okay.
And allegedly, the 50 caliber machine gun fire from 8 50 cals picked the cow so high up into the air that he actually flew underneath it.
We even had a guy that picked up an oxen with his 50s coming off a target and flew under the oxen.
He then lands his plane, goes, apologizes, pays
I thought that was Alex Borgnine at first.
the farmer $16, loads what's left of the cow into his plane, brings it back to the base, and that's what everybody had for dinner that night.
Love that barbecue.
Regardless, the plane it's almost done. It's almost there. He's just got a few more things to refine, and while he's working on that, he hears that the United States Army Air Force has this new general in charge of everybody, and he's like, I don't care. It's one more bureaucrat to fucking annoy me that I'm not going to listen to. Just keep him away from me. So General Kenny, you know, Dick Bong's boss, General Kenny, like the famous General Kenny, he winds up showing up to theater. He's, you know, getting ushered around, meeting all the leadership, and he keeps hearing story after story about this crazy 40-year-old dude that's trying to get his family back. He's going on every crazy mission they've got, and he's just working like a madman on building some Franken plane in the hangar, and he's like, I gotta fucking meet this guy. So he goes out to the aircraft hangar.
Man, the military used to be cool.
And they meet. And at first, Pappy's like, fucking great. Another bureaucrat's gonna tell me I can't do what I'm doing, can't save my family, whatever, I don't care. But they meet, they start talking, and he very quickly realizes that General Kenny is not only a capable airplane mechanic that knows what the fuck he's talking about, he also wants to win this war and isn't afraid to do unconventional shit. Because General Kenny has a pretty big history of wanting to do unconventional shit as well. He actually helped pioneer, design, and convince the American government to build 23-pound fragmentation bombs back in the day, and he has 3,000 of them laying around, so he goes to Pappy and is like, sounds like it could be pretty useful to drop those on top mid-strafing run.
I suppose.
They float down 23-pound hand grenades, just explode all over the enemy after you strafe the shit out of them, and Pappy's like, fuck yeah, I can make that work. He then shows General Kenny the A-20 Havoc that's already up and functioning, and he's like, I could probably mount him in here and we could drop him after we do the strafing run. And he's like, that would be perfect. Also, if you can make me more of these, there's a bunch of combat going on in Papua New Guinea on this place called the Kokoda Trail that we're having all this ground combat. I could send the A-20s in to strafe enemy ground troops on the trail. It would be absolutely devastating. So that's exactly what they do. Pappy builds 15 more of the A-20 Havocs. They go into combat at the Kokoda Trail and play a decisive factor in the victory. And Pappy Gunn's not about to let all the other pilots have all the fun in the planes that he just built, so he goes to the Kokoda Trail and conducts 5 ground strafing missions. On his 5th mission, he's up in the air with Sam, strafing enemy soldiers, and then he gets hit with shrapnel that impales his arm to his chair.
Whoa.
And ends up killing Sam, and Sam dies in his
Jesus.
Killed his dog.
Good God.
Okay, Pappy hasn't gave a fuck in a long time. Now he's running at an active deficit. They've killed the only thing that's brought him any joy in the past, like, year and a half. But the silver lining is General Kenny, seeing how effective the A-20 Havocs were at ground combat, makes Pappy Gunn his head of special projects. Pappy no longer has to steal shit. He no longer has to acquire stuff and rob people. He has a blank check with the DOD budget. He's going to get whatever the fuck he wants whenever he wants.
Hell yeah,
and with
dude.
that, he decides the B-25s might be even more effective at sinking enemy ships if they could skip bomb. Skip bombing was a technique that was originally pioneered by the British, where the plan was fly really fast right above the water, drop your bomb going so fast that the bomb skips across the water like a rock on a pond and then clashes into the side of the enemy ship and explodes. Pappy goes in, gets his skip bombs, modifies the fuses so they have an 11-second delay, giving them enough time that they're going to be able to punch into the enemy ship's hull and then explode on the inside. He then retrofits the B-25 to function with this new skip bombing technique, and then he goes out and tests it on some abandoned ship they have off the coast, and it's effective, at which point he goes to work with a bunch of other mechanics, modifying all 14 of the B-25s, and then he gets more B-25s coming in, and he modifies all those too. So now the B-25 has been changed from a medium bomber into what amounts to an A-10 Warthog that can skip bombs at you.
Fuck yeah. Skibbity boo, it's kind of go time.
Late February 1943, things in the Pacific Theater are, the tide is starting to turn. On the ground, both sides are sucking. It's turning into a war of attrition. Both sides, the American and the Japanese, are struggling to get their guys troops, supplies, and reinforcements. Military intelligence has found out that the Japanese are launching a major reinforcement operation for New Guinea, where they're sending in an entire division of Japanese Marines. They're going to be coming in on 8 troop transports, being escorted by 8 Japanese destroyers. If they can somehow prevent these troops from making it to New Guinea and destroy their ships, America's going to be able to take it over that much faster. If so facto, the war ends sooner. Pappy gets his family back. Pappy is all about it. It's time to throw in the B-25s. All right, so here's the plan. Obviously, these ships are going to have fighter cover from a bunch of Japanese Zeros. We're going to send in America's new badass fighter plane, the P-38 Lightning. They're going to go clear out the Zeros. Then we're going to send in a bunch of B-17 conventional bombers. They're going to drop their bombs from like 10,000 feet up in the air. It's going to be horrifically ineffective. But we know that. It's part of the plan. We're not dropping those bombs because we think they're going to sink the ships. We're dropping those bombs because it's going to force the ships to break out of their formation and create chaos. After the formation's shattered, then we send in the A-20s to strafe the decks and suppress the enemy anti-aircraft, and then we send in the B-25s to suppress them even more and skip bombs right into the sides of their hulls. It's a good plan. Pappy's excited. General Kenny steps in and is like, no, you're too valuable to lose in combat. You're not allowed to go. So naturally, Pappy goes in.
Yeah.
Battle of the Bismarck
Yeah,
Sea.
that's about,
Everything
that sounds
goes
right.
according to plan. The P-38s go in, they take out the Zeros. The B-17s go in, they drop their bombs, they scatter the enemy formation, creating chaos. The A-20s go in, and this is where things take an unprecedented turn. You see, the Japanese didn't know that the A-20 strafer was a thing yet. So when they saw a bunch of light bombers approaching at low altitude, they naturally assumed that they were torpedo bombers because obviously that's the only thing that could be. Now, the doctrine for dealing with torpedo bombers, if you're a ship, is to turn towards the torpedo bombers so you reduce how big of a target you are.
That makes
because
sense.
If you let them be on your full broadside, they can hit the whole side of their ship. But if you turn to face them, they'd have to hit you dead on.
Hey, buddy, I played Battleship. I know what's going on here.
Right on the front for a torpedo to be effective. So all their ships start turning towards the A-20 Havocs, assuming they're torpedo bombers. And what that does is it lines it up so that the A-20 Havocs, instead of strafing width-wise across the deck, are able to strafe the entire deck from bow to stern.
I love it when a plan comes together.
And those decks are covered in enemy infantry soldiers, by the way, or at least they were.
I go, did you ever kill anybody? And he goes, I threw grenades into bunkers. I go, were there people in there? He goes, there were. Yeah.
Then the B-25s come in, strafing and skipping bombs right into the sides of the hull. By the time the smoke settles, they've sunk all 8 enemy troop transports and 4 of the destroyers. And the death toll for the Japanese men on board range anywhere from 3 to 10,000. And that's it. Pappy is pretty much the driving factor and the mastermind behind the liberation of New Guinea. After seeing this, General Kenny radios back to America and is like, hey, we need to just start making the B-25s like this from the factory. He sends like the designs, the rough sketches, the gist, the idea, and the engineers back home in America are like, that's not possible. You can't put that much weight in the front of a B-25. This will never work. It's against the laws of physics. So Kenny is like, fuck this. Pappy, pack your shit up. You're going to America. You're going to show them how to build a fucking plane.
Anything's possible. I don't know why I said it like that.
Goes back to America, goes into this boardroom of all these engineers, all these, smart people that know what the fuck is going on, and they explain to him why this would never work, why it's physically impossible, blah, 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 blah. And Pappy's like, it works. I've done it. We did it with like 25 B-25s already, and we sank a bunch of Japanese ships. By the way, here's a bunch of pictures because I rigged cameras up to all my B-55s too.
Oh, nice.
Yo, World Star.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. Good for him. Pappy, yeah.
Pappy then goes and shows the engineers how he did it, and this becomes an official manufacturing model of the B-25, the B-25 Strafer. After that, Pappy heads back to Australia. Got to save his family. Gets back to Australia.
Got to save that family.
Special projects for General Kenny again, and then he finds out that the engineers back in America one-upped him. They didn't figure out how to mount 8 50 calibers in the B-25. They figured out how to mount 12 50 calibers in the B-25.
Oh, that's nice.
Be the new standard B-25 Strafer. Okay, they've one-upped them. Sure. Is there multiple of them? Yes. Do they have engineering degrees? Yes. Do they have unlimited resources and didn't cobble it together in an aircraft hangar in the middle of a war zone? Yes. But also, Pappy Gunn's not going to let that shit stand. He's got to one-up them back. Pappy goes back to work in his lab. You know what's cooler than a B-25 with 12 50 caliber machine guns?
A B-52
with 4 50 caliber machine guns. And a 75 millimeter fucking tank cannon out of a Sherman tank. Yes, he
there you go.
Does this. Not only does it work, he actually goes out in the testing and sinks multiple enemy ships with a fucking tank cannon he mounted inside of a plane. And then it also becomes an official B-25
That's so
design,
awesome.
the B-25 P-25G. By August of 1943, Pappy's designs are getting mass-produced in America and sent into combat, and they are playing a pivotal role in ground warfare. They are part of the reason that we were able to win the WWAC campaign in 1943.
WWAC.
But this still doesn't solve the problem. Like, okay, cool, America's winning the war now, but also, I still need to get my wife and kids back, so he starts plotting on how he's going to get back to the Philippines and rescue his family. By 1944, intelligence says that the Japanese are storing hundreds of Japanese planes in Manila on Dewey Boulevard, and Pappy's like, they're in a straight line. They're on a fucking street. Let me load up the B-25 with extra fuel tanks. I will fly straight there. I've got enough for a one-way trip. I will strafe all of these planes, take out hundreds of Japanese planes. I'll either land or I'll crash land, and then I'll figure out how to make it back to Australia. In reality, in the back of his head, he's like, then I'm going to go rescue my fucking family. But General Kinney steps in and was like, no, absolutely not. You're too valuable. By September 1944, America's gearing up to re-invade and retake the Philippines, and Pappy's like, let me go in, I'll organize guerrillas, I'll start fighting right now. And General Kinney, again, is like, dude, no, you are more valuable to me than a Japanese general. We're not doing this. You're staying here. Then, as the plans for the invasion of the Philippines get drawn up, they come to the realization that the American aircraft carriers aren't going to be enough to be able to maintain or even compete for air superiority, and they're going to need a landing strip somewhere in the area, preferably in Leyte. Problem, there isn't one. So they're literally, if this plan's going to work, they're going to have to send in a forward engineer party that's going to have to take the beach, get rid of all the Japanese there, and then build a fucking airstrip in a matter of like a day or two if they're going to have any chance of retaking the Philippines.
Oh, Pappy's here.
Let's go.
It's something that's just, it's not possible. But luckily, they have one guy that can do the impossible, Pappy Gunn. Pappy then hand selects his entire raiding and construction crew, makes an amphibious landing in Leyte, takes the beach, and builds a fucking airstrip big enough for every American heavy bomber to land on in the matter of 3 days. And on the very first of those 3 days, it becomes very apparent that some heavy equipment would be pretty fucking handy, like, I don't know, a bulldozer. So Pappy takes off on his own behind enemy lines and steals a Japanese bulldozer and then uses that to build the airstrip. After they get this airstrip up and running, the Japanese bomb the airstrip, and Pappy dives underneath a Jeep, and he gets hit with a white phosphorus bomb.
Oh, no.
And he wakes up in the hospital after being in a coma.
Oh, no. I can almost hear the helicopters. There's a helicopter.
When he finally wakes up out of his coma, he has excruciating pain that seems to be agitated by, like, noise. Any music, loudspeakers, anything just makes this searing pain in his arm where he was hit with this white phosphorus go crazy, so much so that it makes him pass out. The doctors evaluate him. They tell him it's all in his head. They tell him he's making it up.
I don't think it's all in his head, dude.
He's trying to get out of combat. They obviously don't know who the fuck Pappy Gunn is. He's just another wounded soldier to them. And this goes on for weeks, just excruciating pain. So much so he's blacking out constantly. He feels horrible. He's like on his deathbed. It's actively killing him. And then General Kinney finds out what's going on, chews out all the doctors like, this dude's a fucking hero. He's not malingering. Trust me, I have to do everything I can.
These
to keep him
malingerers.
out of combat. Whatever's going on, he's not fucking faking it. Check him out again. They do more and more. They check him. They check him. They finally do an exploratory surgery and find out that a piece of the white phosphorus, which is extremely fucking hot, had entered his body and seared one of the nerves in his arm, and it was still open and red and pissed off. And that's how he was getting agitated by sound. So they go in there and cut everything out, patch him up, and now he's just in the hospital recovering. And while he's in the hospital recovering, he gets more visitors. His wife and kids. In the hospital, America had liberated the Philippines, including Santo Tomas internment camp.
That's got to feel so good knowing that, like, you know, you don't, there's really, that was the reason that you were fighting anyway, was for your family, like literally. Yeah, I think that's got to be something that probably felt so good.
Where his family was being held and they managed to survive. After his family had been liberated, it took them a couple of days to make their way to the hospital where Pappy was being held. And the entire time, every different person they got handed off to was like, holy shit, you're Pappy Gunn's wife and kids. All they could hear about was all the legendary exploits and what their dad did to save them and how he's the reason that they're getting saved this early in the war. And then Pappy Gunn got to hear all the stories of what they had been up to for the past couple of years. And in this internment camp, they were starved, they were beaten, they were treated horribly. His wife came down with appendicitis and they didn't have general anesthesia, and she had to have her appendix removed while she was awake. And as the stories went on, as horrific as they were, there was a silver lining, and it was the fact that his kids took after him. His daughter had a cyst on her spine and had to have surgery, and she was in a full body cast for months. She used that body cast to hide and smuggle intel in and out of the camp to guerrilla fighting groups. Quite literally, some of the intel that was probably used by Pappy to help save them was delivered by them. His sons would break out of the camp at night and go steal food and smuggle it back in to feed their sisters and their mom, themselves, and other people. The entire time, Pappy Gunn was fighting his ass off to get back to his family. They were doing the exact same thing to get back to him, and that is
that's pretty rad.
One of the best stories
I like
I've
that.
ever told. Thank you for watching.
That's a good story, man.
Channels, go buy some merch.
That was really good.
Drink some
I'm glad
Echelon,
I'm glad I watched this.
Quack bang out.
Beep bop boop bop the Pappy poop. Gonna go save his family.
I really hope gets made into a movie, but I know
yeah, you know it won't.
Ruin it at the same time because that seems too unrealistic.
Pappy poop poop. Pappy did save some of his family, and then they went home and had ice cream. Oh, oop. Anyway, there you go. That was fun. Yeah, usually these days I can't be sitting around for like an hour and doing these, but it's nice to be able to get to them every once in a while. So, yeah, that guy was quite literally fighting for his family. But yeah, that's a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe down below. Helps out the channel, makes me feel real good inside. And if you got any suggestions for any other videos, don't be afraid to put it down below, and we will try and get to it eventually. So thank you very much for watching, and